I just want to come back out and talk briefly about frost in the garden versus like a hard freeze, and just explain a little bit more of that process. So we just had some serious hard freezes the past couple of nights, and it is looking dead out in the garden, but that's okay. I have been sick. If you missed my last or one of my videos talking about being sick, so tending to the garden wasn't high on the priority, although I did have everything covered in blankets. I probably could have cut the tomatoes off at the bottom and hung them upside down to continue drying out, but I didn't do that, so the tomatoes are super dead even though they were covered. Here they are, completely dead. These ones I took off, but you can see the cold weather stuff, like here, my radishes are still fine and green. It's just all of the heat loving stuff, it was just too much. Even so, these weren't covered, but they did get a little frost damage, but are at least still living. But I harvested all the tomatoes as a farewell tribute to the tomatoes that would have been. Look at all of those tomatoes that would have been. You can tell, like, by looking at them that they've kind of frozen and turned mushy. But that's okay. But look at all those. That would have been a very wonderful harvest. So I am out here and about to do some serious garden cleanup. Something I have been neglecting because I'm feeling a little bit better, so just gonna get everything cleaned up as much as I can. I don't think I'm gonna need the blankets tonight for the cold weather stuff. I think the really hard freezes are over for at least a little bit, not the whole season, but yeah. So I'm just gonna get everything cleaned up, a lot of stuff removed off the trellises, and just go ahead and start getting kind of some of this dead stuff cleared out. Good morning, everyone. So I just want to come back out and talk briefly about frost in the garden versus like a hard freeze, and just explain a little bit more of that process and what I did here in my garden, because we have had several frosts, which the frost blankets have protected everything from, where we just got a little bit of like kind of like leaf damage, and the plants can still continue to live on after that and keep thriving, which is different than a hard freeze where the cells of the plant pretty much, because of the water that's in the plant, pretty much freeze and expand too rapidly, and it causes the plant to die. So there's pretty much no coming back from that, and no way the plant is going to live after that. So that's what I've experienced here in my garden. We had several frosts, which the plants lived, and then now we've had several days of hard freezes in a row, and all of my plants pretty much just died after that. So I have noticed that when I was cleaning up the garden this time that it is much easier to remove things from trellises and kind of clear out the garden if you hop on it kind of quickly and don't let everything dry up too quickly, especially the beans. I originally thought the first time I grew beans that pole beans that like wrap around the trellis that it would be easier to remove them once they dried, but it actually was much more difficult, and they have a little bit more pliability and are easier to untwine from the trellis if you don't wait and you go ahead and take them off relatively quickly. Now, if you're not sure whether you had just a little bit of frost or if you had a hard freeze that is gonna completely wipe out your plants, usually you can just wait a couple days and the plant will let you know whether it's dead or not and whether it'll be able to keep living or it's fully dead. So sometimes after the hard freeze, everything can still kind of look green, even though kind of mushy. But in a couple days, it'll definitely be completely brown and you'll know that there's no coming back from that. So with that in mind, I got everything that I knew was not coming back out of the garden, which actually it is like December 29th today. So for these plants to have the plants that died were essentially my late summer fall crop of like tomatoes and squashes and beans, and for all of those plants to have lived up until December, I consider that pretty good. Now last year we never had any hard freezes that I remember, so they would have survived last year. So it's always a gamble when you plant things in this time of year, like you don't know when your freeze is gonna come, but it was worth a shot and I will probably try it again next year. So you can see I have a couple of dead things here that I haven't taken out yet. That was African blue basil, and that is the Mexican tithonia. I'm basically using these as props to hold up my frost blanket, so I'm not taking these out yet because the frost and the freeze are not over, but everything else is still really looking good. In here, oh, see, I'm sorry, butterfly. I don't know how to help you. And then over here, you see I removed all of the beans from the trellis. The pods of the bush beans had been starting to dry out. Everything was kind of dying back, and I was trying to save those beans to harvest so that I could regrow them next year and seed save. So I noticed that the pods, though they were kind of mushy, and you could tell that they definitely had frozen, the beans were still pretty good inside. So I went through before I took everything off the trellis and collected the beans out of the pods and took them inside to dry. So I think those will still be fine, and I'll still be able to use them to regrow the scarlet runner beans in the spring. I did notice that my bush beans had died back, so any that had pods left on those, I basically cut the plant and I'm going to hang them up to dry, hoping that those pods can dry out and I could seed save from those as well. I don't know if that'll work or not, but that's what I'm going to try so that I can grow those again. And I always like to seed save myself as much as I can because it reduces on cost of when you grow in the spring, and you can't guarantee with how much people are all choosing to garden these days that you will have access to those seeds. So it also helps to adapt the plants to your area over time if you seed save. So that's why I really like to seed save, and so that's why I'm trying to do that with my beans. You can see here that my lettuces are all bolting, and I'm leaving those in because I am trying to seed save from my lettuces. I have the kales are all still really looking good. All the brassicas are looking pretty good. They had a little bit of damage. You can see on the leaves here of this broccoli that's on its way. Look how pretty. I'm so excited that it did get a little damaged, but still doing good. And then the cabbages are still doing good as well. How pretty. And then let's see, all the tomatoes, those had to come out. Carrots and the radishes are still kicking. So these radishes, I really need to come out here and harvest some radishes. I've been saying that and just haven't done it quite yet, but those are all looking really, really good. And then the bush beans were back here that I harvested and took inside to dry if they had a pod on it. Now over here, the good news about the tomatoes being gone is that these rutabagas are now getting full sun, whereas before they were kind of hidden. So I am excited. What are you doing, little child? So I am excited about that. Anyways, that's all for today, and I will see you all so soon. I'm so excited about the new year and new gardening, and I'm getting so excited for spring and already starting to plan and think about what I want to grow in the spring. So stick around, and I will see you all next week. Tell everyone Happy New Year, Oliver. Say Happy New Year! 2021 is going to be better than 2020, right? Right? Happy New Year, everyone. I hope 2021 treats you much better than 2020. I know Jade and I are feeling fully 100% better, so we're really thankful for that. And so we're hoping 2021 will be much better than 2020.